I, Radhika, on behalf of EducoHire and EducoTrain, welcome you all. Our today's topic is Maslow's theory, importance, and its implications in teaching and learning. We all know what Maslow's theory is, but today we will learn how to implement it in teaching and learning. So let's start this webinar session with a quote. What is necessary to change a person is to change his awareness of himself. Now, I would like to introduce EducoHire, which all know that EducoHire is a joint venture of mytrustedtutor.com and EducoPro. Educators looking to hire teachers can post online teaching job vacancies for easily managed teacher recruitment portal, and teachers who are looking for a job can also send us their CV. Now it gives me an immense pleasure to announce that EducoHire came up with a project EducoTrain. EducoTrain is a training and faculty development solution from the family of EducoPro. EducoTrain will have dynamic faculty and trainers from different streams of life, from the world of education, from the world of corporate sectors, from the world of scientists, YouTubers, and from the world of young achievers. Joining the EducoTrain will help you make a difference in the lives of few teachers and educators, who in turn will make a difference in the life of the students. Now, today I want to introduce our speaker of the day, Namrata Ramkrishnan, educationist ma'am. She is retired from full-time work. She worked as a teacher starting from kindergarten to classes 11 for 10 years. She established and headed a junior school with innovative practices for 13 years. She research coordinator and a project head for environmental science, creating modules for children of classes 1 to 5 relating to real life. Freelance consultants right now dealing with teacher training, lesson planning based on the new NEP. It's really amazing to know about Namrata ma'am. Over to you.
Thank you, Radhika. Let me thank EducoHire and EducoTrain for giving me this opportunity to have this session. Thank you everyone for joining this session in the evening and taking out your busy schedule, taking out time from your busy schedule. Now, let me come straight to the topic. I'm sure you're all aware of Maslow's law of hierarchy. You must have read about it or heard about it.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Your screen is not visible.
I haven't started sharing my screen. I'll just share it in a minute. Okay. So Maslow's law of hierarchy, as you might know, I'm sure everyone is aware. I will just start sharing my screen and we will talk more about it. Can you all, Radhika, is my first screen visible?
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Okay. So he was an American psychologist who was best known for creating Maslow's hierarchy needs, which starts from fulfilling innate human needs, leading to self-actualization. Let us not get into the definition of who he is or what he did right now, but just let us start understanding how his law of hierarchy affects our daily lives. His law of hierarchy was studied by many psychologists and teachers, educationists, and even in management, where the management apply the laws so that they can help their employees achieve the best. And as teachers today, we need to see how we can use the laws to implement it in classroom strategies and to understand it and see the relevance in classrooms, especially today's need with the pandemic and hybrid learning and blended learning. So let us go directly into the second slide. Starting from down, the first needs which he has identified are physiological needs and safety needs, which he has clubbed as basic needs. Radhika, please interrupt me if there is no screen sharing or there is an interruption in the audio.
Sure, ma'am, I'll do.
Yeah, so Now, physiological needs, as you all know, we all need is food, water, warmth, rest, and of course, home. Safety needs are security and safety needs. We all need to feel safe and secure. This is identified or clubbed together by Maslow as basic needs. Coming higher up on the pyramid, we have the needs of belongingness and love needs. This is leads to intimate relationships and friends. And the second is esteem needs, which is for prestige, feeling of accomplishment. Both of these clubbed together are, of course, psychological needs. And last but not the least is the self actualization identified by him, which is achieving one's full potential, including creative activities and then further helping others. According to him, what happens is when you don't achieve this need, the first need, or the second, or the third, or the fourth, you don't go up there. Now, this is contended by many other psychologists and studies, but let us not get into that. Sometimes all these needs coexist together, and sometimes we need to satisfy one or the other at the same time. Only then we are able to move up, right? Some self-motivated individuals, they are called metacognitionists, they jump directly from here to there. Okay, so let us not get into that right now. That is a matter of psychology. But let us just come into each need and see how we can use it and learn from it and see the significance, relevance, and how to encash it in our classrooms. Physiological needs, these are the basic steps for life as it is self-explanatory. Food, water, air, sleep, protection from extreme temperatures. All right. Now, this is the premise which started the midday meal program by the government and the RTE Act. Okay. But when we talk about physiological needs in the classroom, then you may say that, okay, everything is taken care of. But sometimes what happens is, especially now when the online classes are going on, we need to ensure that the children have slept properly, or if there is enough water with them, or they've eaten properly. So it is important, like how we make rules for our offline classrooms, we also make rules for the online classroom teaching. And as a community of educators, we need to be prepared that in future, even if the schools restart, this hybrid learning or blended learning is going to continue, because many of us have seen so many advantages of blended learning and online tools that we really need to make use of it as educators for the benefit of teaching learning process, for the benefit of us as teachers, and also for the children. So in online learning, how can we use this need, or how can we understand how to implement these processes? What we need to simply understand is we need to ensure before we start our online classes, we need to take the parents into confidence and tell them that, the children are well fed and are ready for the class. Now, this can happen for a younger child or an older child. Many times I've seen children just coming up to the online class without, with a glass of milk, and the mother is forcing milk into the child, and the child is in the online class. So all these things are extremely important. We may come from middle class or affluent families, but these simple things affect the class, because online classes are not taken seriously by most students or even parents. We are not really concerned with the protection from extreme temperatures, because I'm sure all parents are taking care of that. But as teachers, we also need to be comfortable. We need to ensure that we've had our cup of tea or coffee or breakfast before we start our online classes, so that, we are alert and active. In many schools who insist that children come to school only after eating a good breakfast, because breakfast is a very important meal of the day. Let me come to proprioceptive senses here. We all know about the five senses which we all have. I'm not going to explain that. But proprioceptive senses are generated as a result of our own actions. Like right now, when I'm talking to you, I'm adjusting my legs or my hands because maybe, I'm not easy sitting in the chair. Many of us adults, you must have noticed that when you're attending a lecture or when you're listening to somebody who is not very interesting, we do switch off. We go easy back on our chairs, we lean back on the chairs, or you cross your legs because there is something inside which is not comfortable and you want to make yourself comfortable. With young children, what happens is that they are not as smart or they have not learned our smart ways. So, as adults, you may seem to be attending the lecture, but maybe you have switched off. With children, they become restless. They try to shift. They try to open their pencil boxes. They try to poke each other. They try to yawn or they try to stretch. So because the body is not comfortable inside. The receptors in the sense organs, in the muscles, skins, and joints are still developing for young children. And for adults, they might get bored with the class or something like that. And then they need to adjust their movements. So what do we do as teachers here? Whether it's an offline class or online class, we need to give sensory breaks. They are called sensory breaks, which simply means that you need to pre-plan activities where, the children get up from their seats, they go and get a glass of water maybe, or maybe do an activity which is related to your lesson. So for example, if you're doing a lesson on plants, then maybe you can tell them, okay, I'm giving you a 5-minute break, but you still want them to be connected with your lesson. So you tell them to go to the kitchen and identify all the seeds they can. And then, you can ask them a quiz when they come back that how many seeds they've identified. So things like this, you need to be prepared and be on your toes so that you can give more sensory breaks. Sometimes a sensory break can be as simple as just blink your eyes, or maybe stand up and do a stretch, or maybe some simple yogasanas. So these kind of sensory breaks we need to think of during a 40-minute session. If your class is 40 minutes, or if it is longer, then even more sensory breaks, depending on the age group of your children. So let me sum it up. The first need, the physiological need, food, air, water, and sleep. So this is also related to the receptors and the proprioception located in the skin, muscles, and joints, which is still developing for younger children and for adults also. When they are not ready for the class or when they find the class not interesting, then they tend to switch off. So the solution is to make rules, routines, norms, whether it's an online class or an offline class, and keep them ready for you so that each student knows that, okay, this teacher expects this from me. So the framework and the outline needs to be in place. We need to prepare for sensory breaks, which could be activities related to the lesson, simple stretches, yogasanas, simple games. It can last from 1 minute to 2 minutes between your classes, and you will find the children more engaged in your lectures. Let us come to the second need as described by Maslow. This is safety and security need. This need may sound very simple, but it is extremely important because as students and even for us, the need to be free from anxiety and fear is what will help us to be creative. And this is also the need for order and routine. So preparing a syllabus for the children in your subject and telling them in advance that in this week, probably, or in this chapter, we'll be covering X, Y, and Z steps. And at the end of the chapter, you will be knowing this. We write learning outcomes in the lesson plan for every chapter, but we don't bother to discuss them with the students. Maybe some of us do, but it is very important to let the children know, even if it is a younger child, that I want you to pay attention, because at the end of the chapter, you will be learning uh, fractions. You'll be learning how what is one fourth, what is half. You'll be learning how to measure one fourth and half in your house, or whatever is the learning outcome you've identified. You will be learning how to add fractions. You'll be learning how to multiply fractions. So in these 5-day classes, which we are going to have, at the end of the class, you all should have learned this, and we are going to do a self-assessment at the end. Now, what happens when me as a teacher prepares you for this? So you are attuned to the lesson. You know that this is what is going to be taught, all right? And the students know what they're in for. So they feel safe, they feel secure, and they feel ready to ask you questions in case they do not understand, which again can be reinforced at the end of the lesson when you say, okay, I taught fractions. Now, do you know how to add? Do you know how to subtract? And you can design a feedback form in either Google Forms or any other platform, or you can use Padlet to give them exercises for different additions and subtractions, so that each child, when he submits his responses, you will be able to know whether they have learned what you intended to. Safety and security, again, has a lot of things to do with furniture. Okay, it also has to do with the need for order. Now, need for order has also been emphasized by Maria Montessori, where she says that everything has its place and there is a place for everything. Simply what it means is the child knows that this particular teacher is a math teacher. If she is meaning to teach me fractions, she's also going to give me sums. She's also going to do a self-assessment, and she's also going to encourage me to ask questions, and I don't have to be scared of her. So this is what it means, where you make the child comfortable in advance, and you tell him or her, the students, that you are there for the child. That is what the implementation of safety and security needs is, to a large extent. It can be, broken into many other parts, like you have, groups, or in higher classes where they have gender issues and which need to be addressed in different ways. So there has to be a platform where students feel safe, where they can share in their problems, depending on, again, on the age group, and the school collectively and the teachers collectively need to come up with how or where and the children or the students can share in their problems and feel safe about it, that it's going to be confidential and they are going to be dealt with. Because unless and until this need is met, apart from the physiological need which we discussed earlier, the children will not be able to do any learning. I had a teacher, for example, a math teacher when I was young, and she would simply scribble examples on the board from the textbook. And she would be so stern and strict that we were so scared of even raising our hands and asking her doubts. And what happened is, still today, I'm really, really very scared of maths. And probably I didn't take maths in my 11th and 12th, and I took pure science. So what I'm trying to say is the teacher makes a lot of difference. And most of us, when we grow up, we tend to take subjects which we were not good at. And when you think back, you begin to see that maybe you're not good at a particular subject because you were not taught properly. Or maybe you were scared of the subject. So if you're scared of that subject, that means you were scared of the teacher. So it is really sad that I have such a wrong memory of the math teacher and pleasant memory of some other teachers, which is not good either for the teacher or for the student. I'm 55 now, And I still have this wrong memory of the teacher, which is really sad. What I'm trying to emphasize is, as educators, we need to create that sense of security and comfort in the mind of the child that, the teacher is going to get me through this particular topic or this particular subject. Coming to the need of love and affection, which is the third need identified by Maslow. The basis of all this need for students' perspective is to be accepted by friends, people around, and by peers. This is a need to belong. Now, what happens is this need can be discussed at length, but to keep it short, I just want to say that with students till class 5, if we take in general, it is the need to belong that identifies them. And according to Maslow, and then according to Montessori, whom also I follow very dearly, she says that till class 5, the child, till that is mostly when he's around 10 to 11 years old, the milk teeth fall off and the permanent teeth are set. And that means to say, according to Montessori, she was a biological scientist too and a doctor, which many people don't know about. She was a medical doctor too, which she says that the personality is set. So with the coming of permanent teeth, the personality is more or less set, which is a very scary, at the same time very encouraging. Because when we have students who are below the age of 10, we can really mold them and allow them to bloom like flowers. So how do we do this? And how do we interfere here as a teacher? We need to remember as teachers that first, we are teaching the subject, but in our endeavor to teach the subject, we forget that we are teaching the child. So when we remember that we are teaching the child, then the teaching of subject automatically will follow and it will be easy for us. Of course, you need the subject expertise that goes beyond doubt. But without being aware that you're teaching the child, the subject will not go through the child. So the basic need of being accepted by friends. Now, the problems which we face here would be, like you have children who, try to demean the other children, or children who look down upon the other children, or, someone who is not accepted, or someone who is getting bullied. Now, here is where we have to intervene as teachers and group them accordingly so that, this need is taken care of. And the whole group, the whole class is a cohesive group where the children feel a sense of belonging, that this is my class. Now, what happens is the classroom, and this can be done through various ways, like giving them joint projects, giving them group projects. Again, when you're making groups, we need to ensure that the groups are holistic groups and not groups where the children make their own groups. Here, the teacher needs to be aware of the personality of the children so that the groups are made accordingly where they learn to help each other. For example, while teaching literary skills in class 9 in a particular school, what happened was there were some children who could not speak English at all because they had come in from a different background. And some children were very good at speaking English. Now, naturally, because it was class 9th, the children who spoke good English and who could, talk about the given topic in literary skills naturally felt a little way better than the children who couldn't speak at all. And I could sense that the children who couldn't speak at all felt very, very diffident. They felt very small. So the solution was I made mixed groups wherein I told the children that, okay, they can choose their groups once, but once I'm going to choose the groups. So I gave them the freedom of choosing their groups on certain occasions. And on certain occasions, I told them that I'm going to do their grouping. So when I did the grouping, say, for example, I grouped 2 children who were very good at talking and oration in English with 2 other children who were not good at that. And the other two children I took into confidence, and I told them that, look, you have to guide these two children. So when the biases were broken slowly and the children learned from each other, the children who spoke quite well and who felt that English was very good and they were, the best, the cream of the class, they became a little more modest and humble. And the children who did not know how to speak English learned from these kids, and they were, they felt that they belonged to the group because they felt kind of not wanted at this time. Then slowly the class began to encourage and appreciate, even little what the children did. So these children who even spoke 2 lines correctly, everyone gave an applaud. And this happened after, say, 4 months or 5 months of continuous work. So although I was teaching them public speaking, what happened was vicariously, slowly, they also learned how to accept each other. And the whole section became one affectionate section where they loved each other as classmates. So it was a very healthy feeling. Now, this sense of feeling in the children will translate later into a feeling of school, into the feeling of belonging to a neighborhood, into belonging to the family, into belonging to the country. So the feeling starts from inside. The sublimation, this is called sublimation, where when you are helping to fulfill the needs in a child, that need is sublimated, and then the child can progress further. Next slide is esteem. Esteem, as we all know, is extremely important, not only for the students, but even for us. We need to feel the need to include and feel important and feel worthwhile. This is also very closely related to love and security. This includes respect, approval, and appreciation. As one gains in self-confidence, one moves forward towards becoming what he wants. Now, again, talking of a live example, I was never able to talk in public as a student because I had a stammering problem when I was young. And most of my friends and most of my teachers at that time, because teachers were also conventional in a missionary school, they never gave me roles which involved speaking. I had to work really hard to overcome my stammering problem. And as a result, I lost complete confidence. So I never came up in front. Not everybody needs to be a public speaker, but for me, it translated into not being a confident person at all. So I couldn't talk on the phone. I couldn't speak to strangers or relatives coming home. And my parents would get irritated with me because, whenever someone came home, I would just go into my room. I wouldn't want to meet any people. So the ridicule in school led to all this. So what I'm trying to say here is, okay, and how I overcame the stammering was one of my aunts. She was very, very, she realized, that she was also a teacher, and she realized that my confidence is going down because of this problem. And of course, we went to a speech therapist and we did all the needful. And then I started learning vocal music. And that somehow helped me overcome the stammering. But it needed a lot of confidence building from my friends and relatives, not my friends, my relatives, especially my mom and dad, to help me overcome my being shy and less confident. And today, I have reached here where I'm able to, conduct a workshop online without having typed notes. So I feel I identify completely with this need because self-confidence is so important in young children. Even if the child is not good at a particular subject, if he's going to be confident, he can overcome any problem in life and he can solve any problem in life. Again, here what happens is, let me give you an example of, say, in a class, there is a particular child who is showing off. Yeah, and he says, okay, especially with, answering, we find that as teachers, when some children are answering out of their turn because they know the answer. So here again, because the child who is answering should not be put down, because his self-esteem is also going to be shattered. At the same time, the child who is shy and who's trying to answer will not be able to answer because the other child has answered. So how do we deal with this? We just let the child who is very confident and who wants to answer, tell him that he has to help the other child overcome his shyness. And that is why the other child needs to answer the question and he has to help him. Now, what happens? There's an inclusion here. There is a win-win situation where we have not put down the child who wants to answer. At the same time, we have allowed him to help the other person. The other child is getting help and his confidence is also boosted. So his need for safety and security, his need for esteem is all met at the same time. There is a classic example of a particular child in a Montessori room. Now, I want to speak about that because it is quoted by Maria Montessori herself. And it is a very beautiful example. There was a class where circle time was going on, where the children, kindergarten children, were sitting in a circle and the teacher was trying to tell them a story. Now, there was this one child, probably because of the angle of where the teacher was sitting, he could not see what the teacher was doing, or maybe he could not see the teacher's pictures or cards, what the teacher was showing. Now, the child was a smart child. He slowly crept out of the circle, out of the group. He took a chair and he stood on the chair so that he could see the teacher better. Okay. Now, what is the problem in this? The problem is quite a lot. The problem is this child was obviously very intelligent. He could use his problem solving skills and pull up the chair. But the problem is the rules of the class were broken because the child could hurt himself. The other children would do the same. There would be chaos in the class. The safety of the children will not be met. So now what does the teacher do? She has to maintain the safety and security of the children. She has to also maintain the self-esteem of this child who has done it without telling him that he's naughty and he's not supposed to have done this and he's a bad child, or, this is not the way to behave, which would be probably common reactions. So if the teacher just got up from her place and she went to the child who was standing on the chair and she said, okay, this is a very good way to see and you're smart, but you can hurt yourself. And this is not accepted in the class because, everyone would do it and everyone could fall. They may fall and hurt themselves. But yes, you're a smart child. So let us sit and let me see how you can see my book better. So then what happens is, now other children are listening to the teacher. The child who stood on the chair got appreciated, at the same time was corrected in the right way. The other children have got also the message that they are not to do this. The rules of the class are reinforced and everything moves on simply. Now, what happens is it just takes a minute for the teacher to stand up from whatever she was doing to do this correction in the right way. There was another incident where I think most of us have taught young children. And again, I'm going back to my kindergarten years where we were distributing, distribution of chocolates was very common during birthdays. And of course, later on, we stopped it for a different reason. But I'm sure you all know this, when the children are distributing chocolates in class, then, the others want to be that child's best friend. So there was this particular girl who wanted to be the best friend of anyone whose birthday it was, because she could get more chocolates. And me, who had just joined as a kindergarten teacher, I noticed that this girl kept repeating, let me call her Sonu for now. So Sonu kept doing this very often. And I said, Sonu, you're not supposed to be greedy. Now, the moment I said that, I knew I said something wrong. She looked at me, the small young child. She was just 5 years old. And she told me, ma'am, but I am greedy. I love chocolates. Now that day, it taught me a very big lesson. The child was being very honest. She didn't know that greedy was bad, right? I immediately corrected myself. I said, Sonu, it's right. All of us are greedy. Even I'm greedy when I see a piece of cake. I want to eat it. But we need to have self control. And self control was a very big word for a kindergarten child. So I said, we need to have self control because, you know, the other child has bought only some chocolates and she has to share it with everybody. So I said, Sonu, you're extremely honest. And I really like what you said, but let us exercise self control. So that day, it was a lesson on self control in the class instead of saying being greedy is bad. I hope you understand what I'm saying, because when we start saying being greedy is bad or stealing is bad or doing XYZ things are bad, then we are pushing guilt into the child instead of actually correcting the behavior. Another thing which I would, another example which is very relevant here, because I'm talking about examples of, younger children. I like to talk about an example of an older child in a co-ed school. Now, this has happened when I was teaching again, and that is why I know. And I'll just name the children as X and Y. Now, when the teenagers grow up, there are, of course, boy-girl issues. And, sometimes we take it with a pinch of salt, but sometimes it might go out of hand. On one such occasion, there was this boy called X, and he passed, very nasty and lewd comments towards girls, which was not acceptable in a school situation. And the girl was getting very harassed. She reported to the counselor and to the teacher. And we did a lot of, research. We did a lot of plodding. And we found that the boy indeed is doing that, not only with this one girl, but with others also. The boy's parents were called. We did some counseling. We gave him a chance to improve. We told him that he has to change his ways. But somehow this boomeranged and he did something which I cannot talk about publicly, but he really did something to the girl inside the school premises, which was really not acceptable behavior. So as a consequence, he had to be expelled from the school and he had to shift to another school. Now, what happened was, as a team of counselors and as a team of educators who were also interested in the child's career, the boy who was expelled. Of course, the girl who was the victim, we counseled her and we counseled her friends, and we kept it confidential, and we really helped her to boost her self-esteem, and we told her it is not her fault, and she bounced back soon. But this boy who was shifted to another school, he lost all his friends. People started trolling him on social media. And because he was still in touch with me and the others in the school, he said, "Ma'am, am I really bad?" He gave me a call one day and he said, "Ma'am, am I really bad? Am I such a bad person?" So then we had a one-on-one session with him in front of his parents. And we said, look, there is consequences for every action. You are not punished. You need to understand that whatever actions we do, there are consequences. You're not a bad person at all. And so to protect your interests as well as the girl's interests, you had to be shifted. And this should be a turning corner where you grow for the better and you reflect on what you did and what you can do now, and just forget it as a nightmare or a stepping stone for you to become better. We started counseling him, and I started telling him, making him aware of his strengths. At the same time, I told him that, look, he has to face the consequences of what he did to protect him and the girl. Now, when he understood the whole situation like this and not as a punishment, his whole personality changed. He started looking at things in the right perspective. And when he was still in touch with us, as his parents wanted us to be in touch with him, we really helped him in his class 11th and 12th, which were his crucial years. And mm, he passed his competitive exams, and today he's a successful engineer. So what I'm trying to say is self-esteem is very important, where each one of us needs to be aware that we are influencing the child in various ways, and you know, things can go from bad to worse if the self-esteem of the child is not taken care of. So of course all schools have various activities, like talking on public platforms, or dance, or integration of arts. Or now here again, as teachers, it is a big responsibility for us as educators to know how we can utilize children's showcase children's abilities with online teaching. So again, the online tools like Padlet and Kahoot and Nearpod and so many others, which there are endless tools which we can keep exploring, can be used for this activity. We can use students who are not good at speaking for art integration, where they can showcase their art for a particular project. So there are various ways where children can display their talents, which is extremely important at that age, where they need to showcase their talents and also realize that everyone is important, and you don't have to be talented to showcase anything. That is the main thing. There is no competition, there is no rat race. Each one is a good person. Each one is good, and each one's strength is what is important. Weaknesses are not important. So I hope, whatever I've said is making sense to everybody. And last but not the least, we come to self-actualization as propounded by Maslow. This is realizing one's capabilities, which leads to confidence and going beyond oneself. So again, one would not work for others in the society or public in general unless and until one is so confident and so full of love with himself that he wants to go and help or reach out to others. So when you see self-actualized people around society, then you know that they have really been brought up well, because they have met their psychological needs, their physical needs, their basic needs, their needs of love, self-esteem, and now they're able to reach out to others. So let us, as a group of educators, keep Maslow's laws in mind, and see that they have very hidden and ramified implications in teaching. And let us remember that we are teaching the child and not the subject. So thank you, everybody. It was wonderful having you. Radhika, you can end the session. Would you want me to take questions?